What is up, guys? I'm back at it again with another video. Today I'm going to be talking about sidechain, basically what it is and how you can use it to improve your beats. Basically what sidechaining is it's a form of compression that you use in the mix. It kind of balances out competing frequencies. One main area where it's used in is the low end. When you're mixing the low end, you can use it to help create a balance between the kick drum and the bass, because those occupy quite similar frequency ranges, and it also helps kind of avoid a lot of mud in the low end and get your mixes sounding really nice. So I've now got this track pulled up in Logic. If you want to see how I made it, I'll link it in one of the top corners on the screen so you can go and watch that. And I used sidechaining to mix the kick and the bass because I wanted the kick to shine through from the bass because they occupy similar frequency ranges. Hold on, you gotta watch this first. Before you start even thinking about sidechaining, you need to understand some of the basics about compression. In a compressor, you've got about 4 or 5 main components. You've got the threshold, the ratio, the attack, release, and the makeup gain. But that comes into the output gain as well. Firstly, we've got the threshold. This is a value that you can set and adjust so that if the track you're compressing goes over a certain amount of volume, I've got it set to minus 34 dB, that will trigger the compressor. So if you've got it set to a low threshold, not much, and so only a few things will trigger the compressor, and if you have it set to like minus 50 or something, pretty much everything will trigger the compressor. Next up, we've got the ratio. This is how much it compresses it by. So if you've got a ratio of 1:1 and it goes 1 dB over the threshold, it will compress it by 1 dB. If you've got a ratio of 6:1, if the sound goes over 6 dB, it will compress it by 6. So, you know, the higher the ratio, the more compression you get. Attack is how quickly the compressor reacts. So if you've got a slow attack, this needle here will come down or across at a slower rate, and on this graph there'll be a slower curve because I've got it on 0 milliseconds. So when it senses that snare sound that I've sidechained it to, it immediately hits it. The release is how long it takes the compressor to come back to normal. So right now it's doing it pretty quick. That's because 50 milliseconds is quite a short time. However, if I put it up to 5K, see, it's coming down a lot slower, and you get shorter bumps and shorter waves. So if you want sharp and snappy compression, maybe for like a kick drum or a specific genre of music, you want the attack and release quite low. I used sidechaining to mix the kick and the bass because I wanted the kick to shine through from the bass because they occupy similar frequency ranges. So what I did is I put a compressor on the bass. Up here where it says sidechain, I routed it to instrument and instrument 5, which is the kick in this case. I kept the controls generally the same, put the ratio 1.5, and I put the attack down to 0 so that it, you know, hit on that moment and got it really punchy. So I'll play the bass view, and if you listen closely, you'll be able to hear where the compression happens. So you can hear it's kind of ducky in volume sometimes. It's because every time the kick hits, it ducks down the volume of the bass. So if I play all the drums together, it'll create a nice balance between the bass and the kick. Now for the Rhodes. I use sidechaining on the Rhodes not really as a mix element, but to just create a bit more extra depth and just make it a bit more interesting. Because this loop is quite repetitive, it gave it a bit more kind of, I don't know, bounce or a bit more depth to it. So I sidechained it to the snare, which just hits every quarter beat. So that every time the snare hits, the Rhodes ducks in volume and kind of makes it sound as if it's like breathing a bit. So again, I went up to sidechain, routed it to instrument 4, which is the snare. And so if you watch here on the meter, every time the snare hits, so every quarter beat, it'll duck the Rhodes in volume.
Grew up with roaches and vultures, or shooters and smokers. Feel like a clone of the older ones. Is this the bed that I want my...
And you can hear it here. You can hear it's got that tiny little click. It just makes it sound a lot better. But yeah, that's how sidechaining's used, and I hope you found this helpful.